This is Bo Dietl's One Tough Podcast.
Police this morning are searching for the person who turned this Harlem platform to a crime scene.
A Red Apple Media Podcast Network production. Now, here's Bo Dietl.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bo Dietl's One Tough Podcast. Today, we're going to go over some current events, and then we got a little surprise for you today. Normally, we have a guest, but I did a podcast in the beginning, probably in 2018, with probably one of the most interesting people you've ever going to meet. And he's still my friend now, and he's a great American, the great Ken Langone. We'll go to that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about things that have been happening. We all know what's going on with the politics is like dysfunction completely in the Democratic Party after that fiasco we saw with that debate. I actually felt sorry for Joe Biden. This is a man that obviously shouldn't be put out there like that. I mean, his wife, to me, is the worst human being in the world, to let your husband be humiliated like that. And she knows all about it, and she just keeps pushing him. And, it's just, we learned about, Parkinson's are terrible. I have relatives, I have family members, and I know friends that have gone through Parkinson's disease. It's not a fun thing. And the great president, my friend, Ronald Reagan, I'll never forget. I was with him in 1986 in the Oval Office. Then soon after that, he kind of deteriorated pretty fast, and it's not a funny thing. It's something that we face in our lives, and people listening, you're going to know somebody or one of your relatives will have it one day. And, when we listen to this, he feels as though he wants to run. He's being supported by his wife and his son there, Fredo there, Hunter. And in reality, they don't want him to leave, because Hunter feels as though if he leaves, he's going to go to jail without passing go. And then all of a sudden, my friend Anthony Scaramucci, he's calling it political malpractice. Anthony's funny. We had him on our show. We did a nice podcast. He hates Trump. And I always say to Anthony, you wrote a great book about Donald Trump. You shouldn't be so out about it, because the reality is you're doing a lot of business with a lot of people. You're friendly with them. Get me a little nervous. If you would have my money, would you turn on me, Anthony? So I try to bring him back to life and bring him back to earth and say, leave it alone. If you don't like Trump, you don't like him. That's it. And then we talk about Hunter Biden there. We're going into it again with all his legal issues. He doesn't want daddy to leave. And we know he's been seen in the White House quite often. And he might be the chief advisor to President Biden. I wouldn't be surprised at that. And, of course, he doesn't want daddy to leave, because he figures he'll go right to jail also. And, it's concerning about Hunter Biden, be around and all this secretive stuff. And I really blame these advisors for Biden. Yeah, they have to draw a line in the sand and decide. Obviously, I am a supporter of Donald Trump. I feel as though this way. A lot of people don't like him. We know he's a narcissist. I know him 40 years. But I always tell everybody, my Democratic friends, my independents, just hold your nose and flick the lever. When you don't flick the lever anymore, you sign it off. And vote for Trump, because I know one thing, it'll certainly be different in this country. Certainly the feeling of Americanism and nationalism will be back, and our military will be strong. And I think the support for the crime and for this illegal incursion into our country from our southern border will stop. So there's certain issues immediately, I believe, electing Donald Trump will alleviate a lot of the problems we have. Then we talk about, I'm laughing because they talk about Kamala Harris. She wants to connect with the voters. She was there with the BET Awards. And then the New York Times had a poll there, and they just found that 43%, only 43% of the black voters would vote for Biden if the election was held today. And then we got my friend Governor Newsom. Got a lot of hair. I wish I had his hair. And a lot of people don't know what he did to California. These are a couple of statistics over there. Just in 2022, 30% of fourth graders were proficient in math, and 31 were proficient in reading. That's 30% out of 100 for math and reading. That's disgusting. Amongst eighth graders, just 23% were proficient in math and 30% in reading. Something's not going right with the education of our young people in California. Then he signed a $297 billion budget last year. The year before, there was $311 billion. He really jacked it up. Newsom turned a $100 billion surplus into a $46.8 billion deficit in just 2 years. He could do good in the United States. If he became the president, we would be good. Our debt probably would increase. I think it's about $34 trillion now. Newsom would have it up to $50 trillion in the next 5 years, I'm sure. And then we got my friend over in Jersey, this hypocrite, and he walks around and he acts proud. He's turning his wife in. His wife did it. He didn't do it. Senator Bob Menendez, what a piece of garbage it is. He beat his other charges, and they got him cold on all these things, getting money, cars, gold, and his trips to Egypt, Qatar. It's at a point right now where the majority of these politicians go in there poor, and they leave very rich. And Steve Bannon, I know a long time, we had our little almost fisticuffs in the White House when I was investigating this guy Gao, this Chinese guy, and I almost went at him. I almost gave him a punch in the face in the White House when he started yelling at me. And I said to him, Steve, you don't yell at me. I don't work for you. And if you know me, I don't take bullshit from anybody. And he's there. It was a guy who was an informant. I don't want to get into it, but he went over the line with me. And, I forgive him. I don't want to see anybody go to jail. And he shouldn't be going to jail for the nonsense that they're putting him in jail. And it's 4 months, but it's not right for Biden to go into jail there. And then we're talking about, let's get local a little bit, Rikers Island. This has to be reevaluated. We have to fix Rikers Island. What if we have to build better facilities, if we have to give better education to our prisoners and help the correction officers over there? There's a reason why correction officers make more money than New York City police officers, because it's that much harder of a job over there. And now they wanted to put prisons all over the city. We have to take Rikers Island, just reevaluate it, fix what we got. Let's put the criminals in one area we can concentrate them. And it's very important. Even our mayor, Eric Adams, who I just talked to the other day, he is not consistent with closing Rikers by 2027. Now, all of a sudden, the estimates for the projects, of course, has risen to almost $15.6 billion. And, we have to reevaluate. If you say something and it's not going to work out, you got to look at all ends of it. Hey, Chicago, you're doing good. The mayor over there, 4th of July weekend, 109 people shot, 19 fatalities. It's ridiculous what's going on in Chicago. And now we're going to have our convention, our Democratic National Convention. It reminds me of, I think it was 1968. There was a convention there, riots and everything, and we're going to have it the same way. We're going to have the Palestinian riots over there, and then we're going to have everybody fighting. And this moron, Mayor Brandon Johnson, he actually comes out and blames President Richard Nixon for all the violence in Chicago. Hey, stupid. Why don't you look at who's killing each other and understand what violence is all about? When you let people do what they got to do without locking them out, without incarcerating them, this is what you're going to have. And that's the same thing that happens in New York. We're treating criminals with kid gloves, and crime is just spiking. And the advent of these Venezuelan gangs and all these little punks in this country, we're going to get really bad here in New York. It's pretty hot out there, and it's going to get hotter. And then we're talking about the New York budget. New York City, it's $112 billion for 2025. $53 million will support over 1,000 cultural nonprofits citywide. And then you have $2 billion for affordable housing. Starting November 12th, small residential buildings and brownstones are required trash bins. Well, I'm for that also. Better than putting those garbage bags out there they rip apart. I think quality of life is very important in New York. And what we're talking about is the crime. We know about the Central Park rape. The 21-year-old was attempted rape. We know about attempted murder. We just have every day you pick up your papers, you can see it. And then we had the dead body in Kips Bay. Poor gal got shot in the head, and this guy in a wheelchair was dragging her down the street. And then with the robberies are really, really up now. And it's just hate crimes. This is very important. Hate crimes. As of last week, there were 334 hate crimes reported the second quarter of 2024. And I'm going to tell you something. 206 were against Jewish hate crimes. That's not good. Now, cocaine we used to have in the 70s. Take a hit at the bar, in the bathroom, have a couple of drinks. Don't do it. Now they got a pink cocaine. And you know what? I tell everybody, my sons, my daughters, every kid I talk to, you take one hit of that alleged cocaine and you'll be dead. They're dumping fentanyl in it. So anybody out there, you tell your kids, having a drink is fine. But once you snort that crap, any fentanyl, you're going to die. And then we know about our migrant shelters. I don't even have to read about that. We saw these schematics and then posts. They're all over the city. And the element on the streets is the same. I almost got hit again today driving over here. These illegal bikes. We started an initiative taking off the streets. Mayor Eric Dietl, your friend, continue. Take these bikes off the streets, these mopeds, these motorcycles. No license plates. Confiscate them. Let's end that quality of life. That's a really good start. And I'm glad you're cracking down on the illegal pot places, but we have to get quality of life going. Again, I love this city. I ain't moving to Florida. Now, on that note, I love everybody joining our podcast again. So there was an interesting podcast I did in 2018, one of the first podcasts. A guy named Ken Langone, one of the great Americans. He's the guy who started Home Depot with Bernie Marcus, and they put this Home Depot together. But Kenny's been my friend over 40 years. He's a great American. You all know about NYU Langone Hospital. That's the Langone. He's given $300 million plus. Then he had started another initiative, I think, for $450 million, where he's let anybody who wants to be a doctor, he's starting to pay for their tuition and pay for them to go to school to become doctors. He's a really great American. Kenny's been involved on the board of General Electric, Home Depot, Tricon, which was Yum today. And Kenny is just one of the most remarkable people. Robin Hood Foundation, and most charitable. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And I'm very proud to replay. And I advise everybody to listen to the podcast. And you'll listen to Ken Langone, one of the greatest Americans, loves this country, and stay tuned for the podcast. You'll learn a lot from Ken Langone. Maybe you'll learn how to be a billionaire, too.
All points bulletin for the Bo Dietl Show on the Gas Digital Network. Here's your host.
All right, first of all, I want to welcome everybody to the podcast. We're doing really good. We got 5 stars. We got a big following. I'm joined, like always, with Carlo from the Bronx, my assistant and executive producer of our podcast. Today, we really got a really special guest. I've had a lot of people on this show. We hit like number 8 in the country with our podcast. It's pretty big.
Only number 8?
Well, it's rising. It's rising. But today, we got someone really important because he's a pots and pans type guy who worked hard, come from a family like mine. His dad was a plumber. He come from Roslyn area, Long Island. My family's from Ozone Park, Italian-American. My mom was born in Italian Sicily, so I'm a first generation. And he just worked his way.
I'm an American of Italian descent.
I'm an American of Italian descent also, Kenny.
Good.
And I'm glad you clarified that.
I'm not an Italian-American. I'm an American.
And I 100% support you with that. So the point is, you worked hard as a kid. You had all kinds of jobs, menial jobs as a kid, everything you could do. What kind of shit do you do?
Well, I used to collect cardboard and sell it to recycle it. I sold Christmas wreaths. I worked at a butcher shop. I worked at a chicken market.
Yeah.
I dug ditches.
Yeah.
I caddied.
Well, you don't golf that good because
I don't golf good at all. But you know what? I had fun caddying. It was $3 a bag. It was $6, and it was a lot of money then.
How did you end up afford to go to college? When you went to this great college, a lot of our mutual friends, you've gotten into the college. They got buildings named after you. This college called Bucknell, a very fine institution.
That's one of the great loves of my life.
How did you get into it without any cash?
I talked my way in.
No. How'd you get in?
I got in. I went to see friends of mine who were a year ahead of me in high school, and I went up for house party weekend, and I thought, I was getting ready to go in the Marine Corps. It was 1953, and the Korean War was on. And I wanted to go in the Marines. My brother was in the Army. My mother wouldn't sign me in, Bo, because she said she had one son in the military, and she wasn't going to sign the second one in. If I wanted to go when I was 18, she couldn't stop me, but she was not going to sign me in. Well, by the time I waited to be 18 in September, Eisenhower ended the war. So if I couldn't go kill somebody, why did I want to go in the Marines for, right? So I went up to a house party weekend at Bucknell, and I thought this is what they did every weekend. And they had Saturday morning classes, and my friends had classes that morning, and they said, well, why don't you go see this guy in this building over there? What about? I said, well, he's a nice guy. Just go talk to him.
How was your marks in high school, Kenny?
Horrible.
Are you
Horrible.
What did you excel in high school?
Nothing.
So then all of a sudden,
Hooky. I excelled in hooky.
So then all of a sudden they wanted some cash to get into Bucknell, right?
Look, let me say this to you. I didn't work hard in high school. The Regents system was great for me because I bet the ranch. For the end of the year, you took one test, and whatever you got in that test was whether you passed or failed the course. So I was gifted intellectually. I know I'm gifted. I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I'm not the stupidest. And I just did enough to get by in high school. And so here I am this Saturday morning with what was called a registrar. This is the guy that lets kids in at Bucknell. And he said, what are you here for? And I said, well, my friend said I should come and talk to you about what? I said, I don't know. He said, well, you know what I do? And I said, no. He said, well, I'm responsible for letting kids in. He said, well, tell me about yourself. So I sat there and I started talking about me and my family and what are you going to do with your life? I don't know. I'm going to the Marine Corps. And he said, is that what you want to do? I said, yeah. He said, well, would you ever think about going to college? I said, well, I never thought about it. So he said, well, how do your parents feel? I said, oh, my parents want me to go to college in the worst way.
You had nobody in your family that attended?
I was the first one. Well, the one guy at Bucknell was my cousin. He was the first one. And so he said to me, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I never gave it a thought. And tell me about what did you do in high school? And I told him I ran cross country. And I belonged to the PBC Basketball League. And that I worked all the time. I worked after school. I worked on Saturdays. I worked on Sundays. And what kind of work? And I told him all the different stuff I was doing. And this went on for about an hour. And he thanked me for coming in, and he asked me for my address. And 4 days later, I get a letter from him telling me that if I'd like to come to Bucknell, he'd like to have me come.
Did they offer you the four-year thing?
Nothing. They offered me nothing. They offered me the chance to come.
Oh, just to be interviewed.
Right. And at the bottom of the letter, he wrote in longhand, in college, you're going to have to work much harder than you did in high school. And I thought, shit, that's not hard because I did nothing in high school. Anything was an improvement. And so my parents were excited. They put a mortgage. They bought this house for $4,000 in 1944, and this is now 1953. And they put a mortgage, and I worked. I always had a buck in my pocket, and I worked, and one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I'm off to Bucknell. It was only $2,500 a year then. That was a lot of money that my father was making.
The house was worth $4,000, $2,500.
Maybe it was worth $15,000. Yeah. And my dad made $5,000-$6,000 a year as a plumber.
Household finance, remember that?
Yeah. My mother worked in the school cafeteria.
Yeah.
And I never felt poor, Bo. I always felt like I was a blessed kid because we had plenty of food. We had a warm house.
Yeah.
I always thought working was just part of living.
Yeah.
And you did it. And I was always, by all means, say I was a hustler and a go-getter. I always say to somebody, my son Ken, he really hustles and he's really a go-getter.
Yeah.
And so putting it all together, we did it. And the next thing I knew, I'm out of Bucknell. I graduated.
You're in Bucknell, and now the next step in your life was this NYU place, this Stern School. How'd you get in there? That's like a real highfalutin joint.
Well, it wasn't then. It was strictly nights then. Mm-hmm. And it was in Lower Manhattan, and they had classes all over Lower Manhattan. They had them at the Bankers Club. They had them in the Lawyers Club. They had a little old building down on Trinity Place, 4 flights. You had to walk up, no elevator, 4 flights of steps. It was cold in the winter, and you sweat your ass off.
It didn't have the reputation it has now.
It did not have the reputation it has now. And it was a strictly night program. So you after work, and so my father-in-law introduced me to a guy at the Equitable Life in their investment department. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, I'm going to offer you a job because you've got such enthusiasm. I think you're going to really do great. And he was impressed that I'd gone to Bucknell. And he said, there's only one thing. We only hire MBAs here. And I said, well, I haven't got one. He said, well, would you get one? I said, when? He said, at night. I said, sure, I'll do that. So I went to work for the Equitable for $82 a week.
Equitable Insurance.
Equitable Life Assurance Society of the United States. I went to work for $82.50. I went to NYU at night. Mm-hmm. There was a Horn and Hardart on the corner down from the school.
A lot of, for our listeners, Horn and Hardart was you put a quarter in, you get a sandwich.
Not a quarter, a nickel, a dime. you put a dime in and you get a roll and butter, and that's what I used to get, 5:30 when I went to school. I'd get a roll and butter and a cup of coffee that would last me, and then I would take the Lexington Avenue subway to Grand Central. I'd get the 7th Avenue IRT out to Flushing.
Yeah.
Then I'd get on a bus from Flushing to Auburndale, which is near Bayside, and I'd get home 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and Elaine would have supper for me.
So you were going to school for your MBA. You were working
4 nights a week.
Insurance.
4 nights a week.
And then eventually, how long did it take you to graduate?
Well, I started in September of 57. I took 6 months off because I went into the Army from March of 58 until...
Oh, you went into the Army?
Well, I had since I didn't go in the Marine Corps, I went to Bucknell. I had a military obligation.
Oh, we had a draft then back in the early 50s?
Yeah, well, sure, that was the Korean War.
But, I mean, it had ended, so it was a draft.
No, but it ended, but you still had the draft in the 60s. No, in the 60s, you still had...
That's right, I remember. I was part of the 60s.
So I would join a reserve outfit. It was a 6-month program. I went in March of 58, and I got out in September of 58, and I went back to NYU. I got my MBA.
So you're a veteran?
Wait a minute, I'm not done with my vet. Hold on, I'm a warrior.
I'm ready to thank you for your service.
I'm a warrior. Hold on. So then I got back in September of 58. I went to NYU. I got my MBA in October of 60. I graduated. And in August of 61, I still had reserve duty. I had 2 weeks in the summer and 1 night a week during the year to go to reserves. Well, this Sterling outfit I was on called the 301st Logistical Command, got reactivated by President Kennedy when Khrushchev built the wall around Berlin.
Yeah.
And they activated us and sent me to Fort Bragg, and I was in Fort Bragg for another 11 months in the 18th Airborne Corps.
So you were actually in the service. I mean, you actually did active duty.
Yeah.
So thank you for your service. You're my fucking hero.
Hold on. I did active duty for the first 6 months, too. I was in Fort Dix. I had a glorious excursion. I started in Fort Dix. I got transferred to Fort J. I got transferred to Fort Slocum. I got transferred to Fort Totten, and I finally got transferred to Fort J. I was in 5 military posts in 6 months.
But you were ready to go.
I was a hero.
You were ready to go. You were a hero, Kenny.
I was a killer. I wanted to go kill the enemy.
Well, and so then, how, a lot of people don't understand, a lot of our listeners, first of all, we're going to talk about Kenny's book towards the end, but a lot of people don't understand. You are one of my heroes.
And you're one of mine, Bo.
In my true life. And seriously, Kenny.
And I mean that, Bo.
Because
I admire your service as a cop.
Yeah,
and what you did.
It ain't about me. It's about you.
No, it's about us. It's about America. Bo. It's about America.
You're the success story of America.
We all are.
So now let's hit Wall Street. How do you hit Wall Street? A lot of people, listeners, don't.
Not easily.
Hold on, everybody. Listen to this. You're talking right now. You're listening to Mr. Ken Langone, a pots and pans guy from Long Island, American Italian descent, that became a multi-billionaire.
Italian descent.
Keep going. What happens in Wall Street now?
So I get called into the Army, and I get out in August of '62. We had one little boy. Kenny was going to be 2 in December, and Elaine was pregnant with our second son, Bruce. You've met Bruce, the Marine. And in May, while I was still in the Army, in May the market had a big crash, biggest since '29.
That was in 62. 62, God.
And everybody was leaving Wall Street. And I said, I'm going to Wall Street. And my father-in-law, God bless him, wonderful man, pleaded with me. Stay at the Equitable, good benefits.
Yeah, you got a pension and all that.
Right. And he said, we don't know how bad this is. He was in Wall Street. I said, no, I've got to do it. This is my calling. I've got to do it. So he said, well, all right, I'll see what I can do to get you some appointments. So he helped me, and hell, I went all over Wall Street, and I finally happened onto a fellow by the name of Maurice Hart. He was a partner at New York Hanseatic.
New York?
Hanseatic. It was a firm that principally focused on trading foreign bonds, governments and corporations. And I went to see him one day. He was a lovely man, and he said, well, tell me how you're doing. I said, well, not very well. He said to me, what do you mean? I said, I've been all over. I've been to Goldman Sachs, Whitewell, Merrill Lynch, Lee Higgins, and Clark Dodge. There were all these firms. They're all gone now. But I said, nobody. He said, well, kid, let me give you the lay of the land. I said, what's that? He said, we got WASP firms for WASPs. We got Jewish firms for Jewish kids. The Irish kids we put on the floor of the exchange as clerks. And the Italian kids we put in the back office as runners.
Again, we're being demonized.
Well, no, come on. It was the way it was. I thought it was a mountain to climb, not something to be discouraged by.
Go ahead.
So he said to me, you're better than that. Uh-uh. He said, don't sell yourself short and make sure you get an opportunity. So I kept trying and trying and trying. And finally, one day, my father-in-law knew a fellow by the name of Eddie Rowan, who was a partner at R.W. Pressbridge, Railroad Bond House. They traded railroad bonds.
That name again?
R.W. Pressbridge, Pressprich.
They were bond traders.
They used to call it squash cock.
Go ahead, Kenny. So, that's what's good about this podcast. You can curse, Kenny.
Say what you want. So anyway, I met a man there by the name of Jack Cullen, and he said to me, kid, it was August of '62. He said, I'd love to hire you. He said, but we're cutting back. It's a tough time. And I said, well, he said, but I want to tell you something. You're going to be successful. I said, how do you figure? Well, he said, you're very sensitive. I think you're going to know when to go in for the kill and when to back away. And he says, that's a talent that's born into you, not something you acquire. But he said, you're going to be okay, but I can't hire you. I thanked him, and I told him I appreciated his kind words, and I left. And I'm in the elevator going down, and I'm saying, wait a minute. If he thinks that much of me, why wouldn't he hire me? So I get out of the elevator, and I go right back in, and I go upstairs. And I say to the receptionist, can I see Mr. Cullen? Sure. So she calls him. He was in the trading room. He comes out, and he said, did you forget something? I said, no. I said, Jack, his name was Jack Cullen. I said, Jack, what do you pay a secretary? We pay him $150 a week. Now, I had an MBA. I had 4 years of great experience at the Equitable. My military service was behind me. Mm-hmm. I said, pay me $150 a week. You can't live on it. I said, no, that's my problem. I'll figure out how to live on it. You pay me $150 a week, but you got to give me the right to call every account you're not doing business with. There's no loss to me. There's no risk to you at all except $150 a week. Well, I had taught at NYU after I got my MBA for 1 year, and then when I got called into the Army, I was able to get my job back at night, teaching at NYU at night. Mm-hmm. So a combination of the money.
What kind of shit were you teaching?
I was teaching securities analysis. I was teaching basic accounting.
Financial stuff.
Yeah, financial stuff. And so between making that and 150, I made ends meet. My father-in-law was, because the Equitable Life wanted me to go back. They said, look, I said, no, I'm not coming back. So off I went to Wall Street, and I didn't look back. I didn't lick my wounds. I didn't say how bad it was because I was a poor Italian kid many opportunities were denied me. I said, I'm going to show these guys. And I just did what I did my whole life. I worked my ass off. Mm-hmm. I would travel like a fiend. I'd go to Columbus. I'd go to Toledo. I'd go to Dayton, wherever there was a bank or an insurance company. I'd go to Louisville. I'd go to Steubenville, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. You name it, I went.
Ken, in your book, you talk a lot about risk and taking the calculated risk,
Right.
and you had the confidence to take the risks,
Right.
and you saw opportunities in maybe these companies that the other analysts and investors weren't seeing. You tell a story about Kenner Toys.
Kenner Products.
Kenner Products. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. One of my first trips, January 1963, I'm going to make a trip to Cincinnati, Ohio with Jack Cullen. He's taking me out to meet these accounts. Yeah. He knew them. They weren't doing much business with them, but he knew them. And the week before that, I was Kenny was 2, and Bruce was 3 months old, and relatives gave the kids toys and stuff, and I'm putting the toys away in a toy box. And I'm just curious, and I'm looking, and I notice that there was some Flintstone building blocks. And on the box it said, manufactured by Kenner Products, Cinti, C-I-N-T-I, Ohio. Cinti is abbreviation for Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. I said, gee, that's interesting. So I went in the office the following week, and I noticed that Kenner Products had filed to sell stock through Kuhn Loeb and Company in May of 1962, which was 8 months before. Well, the market had collapsed.
Yeah.
So the deal was canceled. They couldn't do it. So I went to the office. I was in the office, and I picked up the phone, and I called up information, Kenner Products. And I called, and the woman answered the phone, and I said, can I speak to the president? And they said, well, that means Mr. Al Steiner. And I said, well, I don't know who he is. Well, he's the top guy. I said, well, may I speak to him? She said, sure. So I called him up. I spoke to him, and I said, Mr. Steiner, I'm going to be in Cincinnati next week, and I'd like to come by and see you. And he's about what? I said, well, I see you were going to sell some stock for the company, meaning you needed money, and the deal didn't get done. He said, well, we wanted to grow a little bit, and we needed the money for expansion. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, well, I'm going to be out there, and I've got an idea. And he said, well, sure, come on by. So the next week, when I went out with Jack, I had an afternoon open because we were going to work in Cincinnati in the morning. I had an afternoon off, and we had dinner meetings with the people in Cincinnati. Yeah. And the next day, I was going to Louisville to see the banks in Louisville. I was going to go from Cincinnati to Louisville by train. Mm-hmm. So it's the afternoon, and I got nothing to do, and I thought, Jack, you want to go out with me to see Mr. Steiner at Kenner Products? He said, no. He said, what the hell are you doing out? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I just think I'll go out and see him. He needed money. He was going to sell stock, and he didn't get the deal done. So I go out, and I meet this wonderful gentleman. Oh, man, he was 65 or 70 then, I'm guessing. And I told him, I said, I got an idea. I said, the markets may not be receptive to your stock, but supposing I can get an insurance company to loan you money for 10 years, and they'll have the right to convert into common stock if they want it.
You figured this all out yourself.
Well, it was common stuff. This is plain vanilla, for Christ's sake.
Go ahead.
So he said, well, that's very interesting. Let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. So he called me when I got back to New York. He called me. He said, how much money? I said, well, how much do you want? He said, well, we can use $3 million. And I said, okay. And what rate? I said, I think it's going to probably be about 6%. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing around that. And I said, you may have it convertible into common, meaning the holder of the bonds could convert it into common if the company ever went public. And he said, that's fine. He said, how much are you going to charge me? I said, I'm going to charge you 2%, $60,000. He said, well, if you think you can get it done, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I had called on 2 insurance companies out in Ohio that knew the company. It was private, but they knew about the Steiner family. Right. They were very upstanding, respected people in the community. And next thing you know, I did the deal and I got the fee.
So this is the beginning of you realizing, hey, this shit I could do, man.
I knew I could do it.
I could do it. Let's fast forward to 1968. You meet this guy, this famous guy, this Ross Perot
He wasn't
guy.
famous then.
But hold on, he was with that EDS.
Yeah, but he wasn't famous then.
But no, we know him as Ross Perot.
I didn't know him until somebody told
tell
me
us
about
what
it.
happened to this 1968 thing, because I think we're going to go into a fast, because all of a sudden you're starting to accumulate. You're starting to get a reputation.
Well,
This
by now,
Italian guy,
by 68, by 68, I had done very well in sales, and I made a partner. They made me a partner of the firm in 3 years.
People knew Ken Langone was out there.
Well, no, I didn't have that much. EDS put me on the map, though.
Okay, so let's go to EDS.
Okay. So Elaine and I we got invited to a party in Washington. The Louisiana congressional delegation, the people in Congress in Louisiana, hosted a Mardi Gras party the Saturday night before Lent started. And we got invited to this party. And I'm sitting next to this very courtly gentleman by the name of Jack Height. And we're dancing and drinking and having a great time and laughing. And he casually mentions to me that he's part owner of a company called Electronic Data Systems Corporation, and they're going to go public. They're talking to investment bankers about, what do I know about it? And I said, well, gee, what do you mean? Well, we're thinking about going public. And I said, well, gee, is there any chance I can get an appointment? He said, oh, yeah, I'll call my partner, Ross Perot, up. And who's he? He founded the company, and he runs it. I never heard of him before that.
In Texas, right?
In Texas. So he's called me Monday. So I called him Monday, and he got an appointment. Now we were drinking and raising hell and swearing and having a good time. And he said to me, call me up. He said, you got an appointment Wednesday morning at 11:30. Mr. Perot was very precise. You got 30 minutes from 11:30 to 12. Be on time and get out exactly at 12. I said, okay. And by the way, he said, don't swear.
Don't talk like Bo.
Well, me. So I said, okay. So I took the sad part of the story, I had 2 young kids with me who we hired from the Harvard Business School. Remember that fire that the guy started up in the hotel, the Hilton Hotel in Tarrytown, New York?
Yes.
The guys got, both these guys they were then with Arrow. They left Pressbridge, they went to Arrow Electronics, and they were burned to death.
Wow. I remember that.
Duke Glenn and Roger Green. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I go down, and damn it, exactly at 11:30, the door opens, and I get let in. And I look across the room, and here's this little guy behind this big desk. All I could see with his ears, it looked like Kilroy. He looked like Kilroy. And
this is Ross Perot.
He stands up. Fellas, Ross Perot. Nice meeting you. Welcome to EDS. Come on, let's over here and talk. And he takes us over to a little sitting area with a sofa and a couple of soft chairs. Well, he said, let me tell you what I'm hearing from all your friends in Wall Street. And he starts talking. Clark Dodge said this, Goldman Sachs said that, Whitewell said that, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, it's 29 and a half minutes. And I got 30. He said, well, okay, what do you think? I said, well, Mr. Perot, Jack told me I had 30 minutes. It's about up. So how about if I come down and see you again some other time and we can tell you our thoughts? No, what do you mean? I said, well, Jack said I had 30 minutes. No, tell me what you think of what I said. So I said to myself, I'm going to blow the 30-minute rule. I might as well blow the swearing rule, too. So I said, Mr. Perot, that's the biggest pile of horse shit I've ever heard in my life. And he rears back, and what do you mean? And I said, we talked for 13 hours.
Wow.
I missed my plane.
Just stayed there for
13 hours. We went to dinner. He was driving us around Dallas to look for a drugstore where I could buy a razor and toothbrush.
Your fucking beard was growing.
I know. I had nothing with me. I was going down in the morning plane. I was coming back in the afternoon plane.
All right, so you nailed 13 hours.
So he says to me, I really enjoyed this. And by the way, in those 13 hours, we learned some scary stuff. We were married the same hour, the same day, the same year.
Wow. Similar to our mutual friend that we lost, Mel Weiss, that you were in the Army with.
He was in the Army with me the second time. When I was
Mel Weiss, it was a class action lawyer, was a dear friend of Mr. Langone. And
he was at Fort Bragg with me.
Yeah.
And we were both patriots. We both loved America. We were both wrong. We both thought that the Vietnam War was a just war. Now I look at it back, and
we all agree.
We made a bad mistake.
So let's go.
So anyway, so he says to me, I'm not going to... So I said, I'll call you tomorrow. Took the first plane back the next morning when I got landed. got at the office. I called him. He said, I was going to make my mind up about Friday, but I want to get.
He was looking for a company to do the IPO.
Right.
Okay.
He wanted an underwriter. He said, but I'm going to think about it a little bit longer. No rush. He said, I'd like you to come on down again. He said, bring some prospectuses down with you, the deals you've done. Shit, I had a problem. I hadn't done any deals.
So you had to play it out. Go ahead.
Well, so anyway, so I go down there the second time, and we have a great meeting.
Yeah.
And he always picked me up at the airport, and he always dropped me off.
He actually picked you up
Himself.
in person.
He drove his own car, picked me up, and drove me. He's that kind of a guy. I love him.
Yeah.
And so he said to me, we spent the whole day together. He never asked me for the prospectus, and I'm going in my head, oh boy, I ducked the bullet. He didn't ask me. Forgot it.
He forgot that. Good. Let him forget that.
So he drives me over at the airport.
He says, you got it, boy?
No,
This going to be yours, boy?
No, he said to me, by the way, Ken, did you bring those prospectuses down?
Oh, fuck. I left them in the office.
No, I said, I didn't. Did you forget them? I said, no, there aren't any. He said, what do you mean? I says, yours will be the first deal I ever did.
Wow. You just came right
And he
and
looked
fell
at
right
me.
on
I
us.
said, but Ross, relax. Nobody can screw up your deal. Your company's so good and so successful.
So you said what he wanted to hear.
But I said, I got one chance at the brass ring.
And tell the truth.
And if I blow it, I'm done.
Right. If you lied about it,
But
you would
if
have
I
got
do,
caught.
not lie, but if I did a bad job,
Yeah.
because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I said, but if I do a good job for you, I'm made. And that's what happened.
Wow. So then his stock came out at, what, $16?
Came out at, yeah, that was another story. We agreed to a price of $15 a share.
Yeah.
And back then, you used to go over to New Jersey the night before the deal.
Yeah.
And at 1 o'clock in the morning, you'd sign all the papers in New Jersey so you wouldn't pay the New York State transfer tax
Yeah.
on a stock sale. So Elaine and me, Ross and Margaret, the four of us had dinner at 21. And Elaine had to go out to the island because the kids had to go to school the next day.
Yeah.
And Margot and Ross and I took a limousine across the Holland Tunnel, got off, signed all the documents. He and I signed the documents there, and the guy that drove the limousine was a witness.
Yeah. Wow.
And so we're driving to New Jersey, and we had a limousine with seats that looked at each other in the back.
Yeah.
And he was sitting in the seats looking for, he and Margaret was sitting in
Yeah.
the seat, and I was sitting in the seat looking backwards.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Fred, what you're going to tell me right now, I'm not getting $15 a share. I said, that's right, Ross. Damn it, Margot, they're all alike up here. I tell you, you can't trust them. See, they all warn me about you. You're going to wait till the last minute when it's too late and
You
tell me.
Italian New Yorkers.
No, he didn't get that thing. But damn it, he said, you're all alike up here. I said, wait a minute, Ross, take it easy. Now, I winked at Margot, and she caught the wink.
Yeah.
I said, Ross, hold it. Does $15 mean that much to you? Damn right. In Texas, when you put your hand out, a deal's a deal. And he said, you told me. I said, Ross, you got $15. So Margot looks and says to me, well, what were you going to do? I said, well, Margot, I was going to do it at $16.50 a share. But if he only wants $15, I said, we'll do it at $15.
Right in front of him.
We did it at $16.50 a share.
Wow. And when did they
Within 1 year,
Yeah.
it was at $160 a share.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. You know, I know your time, we're stuck for time, but so now all of a sudden in 1974, 69, you become the president of the firm of Prespect, right?
Pressbridge.
How do you say it?
Pressbridge.
I don't fucking know how to say this shit.
Say it.
Prespect. Okay. Now you
Not
started.
prick, Pritch.
So in 1974, you start this firm called Invamed, which I have to be a candidate. I am a stockholder, and you hold my stock account in Invamed.
You're a stockholder.
Yes,
not
I
Invamed.
got thing that comes
No,
every
you're
month.
not a stock. You're a stockholder in stocks.
I don't know, whatever the fuck, whatever it is, I'm part of your Invamed.
You're a client here.
A client, and yes. And then all of a
The only
sudden,
one we have left, Bo.
you start, hold on a second. No, that other one, that one that you gave me and Joe was bad that time. What was that one? That Action World, New World, World Dick? What
Oh,
was it?
no.
World Dick.
Oh, no, that was a... Hold it. Joe knew all about that goddamn thing.
All right, but let's go off that. Let's go to positive things. Forget about negatives.
Good.
All right, 74, you start Invamed. They had this thing called a Handy Dan thing. Because this is the most important thing, because I think this is what you're known for. You're one of the original founders of one of our great institutions in America where I go all the time, a place called Home Depot. Real fast, you met this guy Blanketation and this other guy.
No, I met Bernie Marcus.
You met Bernie Marcus first. Go ahead, tell us the story.
He was running a small chain of hardware stores in California called Handy Dan Home Improvements.
Yeah.
And I met him. A friend of mine recommended me to him, and I went out to see him, and I fell in love with Bernie. So I ended up buying all the stock
For Handy Dandy?
in the hands of the public.
And what was that called again?
Handy Dan Home Improvement Centers.
Well, they were mostly West Coast?
They were Arizona, Kansas, California. That was pretty much
Home
it.
supply
Texas.
shit. Home supply shit.
Like little hardware stores, like Rickel and Channel and Pergament.
Yeah.
Remember those stores?
Yeah, sure.
Those aren't in business anymore, but Home Depot
Yeah,
is.
we drove them out of business.
So, what did you see in that home center business?
I always liked the business because I believe then and I believe now the most significant asset a person has in America is their home. So they'll spend it to keep it up. They'll take care of it, and so it's a great market. It's a continuing market, even in bad times. In fact, when guys are laid off,
You need to fix your
when guys are laid off, they don't hire a plumber. They fix it themselves, or the wife says, "Get off your ass. You're out of work. Go out and paint the house."
Right.
Get
And they
out.
teach you how to do it, too. Go
Well,
ahead.
we help you. So anyway, I owned all this stock. It was only 350,000 shares in the hands of the public.
Wow.
And I'll tell you a funny story. I had 300,000, and there was 50,000 I didn't have. And it was in the hands of an order of Redemptorist priest in Brooklyn.
What was that word?
Redemptorist priest.
What the fuck is that?
That's an order of priests. They go to Latin America. They're like missionaries.
Yeah.
And the top guy was named Ray McCarthy, Father Ray McCarthy, heavy Irish brogue. And he said, I called him up and I said, Father McCarthy, I understand you own 50,000 shares of Home Depot. He says, Langone, is that an Italian name? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, you Catholic? I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, well, under the pain of hell, tell me what I should do. I said, sir, don't sell your stock. Keep it. 'Cause I don't want God going against me. So, long story short, the 350,000 shares represented 20% of the company. 80% was owned by a real bastard by the name of Sandy Sigaloff in a company he was running called Daylin, Daylin.
Yeah.
It was a conglomerate of retail stores, drug stores, and shit, tchotchkes and stuff. He hated me and I hated him. But I was Bernie's protection, but because I owned 20%, he wouldn't screw around with Bernie. Bernie and I had now gotten to be very close personal friends. Bernie, one night, November 30th, 1977, why do I remember the date? It was the very date I sold my medical device company to Eli Lilly, IVAC Corporation. And that night we drove from San Diego, Elaine and I, up to L.A. to have dinner with Bernie and his wife. The girls had never met each other. And Bernie's, after Billy made a nice Chinese meal. She doesn't cook anymore. She doesn't have to. She's got people doing that for her. So the girls were cleaning up the kitchen. And Bernie took me into the living room. He said, do me a favor, get this guy off my ass, sell him your stock. I said, if I sell him my stock, you're a dead man walking. What do you mean? I said, I'm assigning your assassination papers. You're wrong. He needs me. He doesn't know. Okay. Long story short, he goes to the bedroom. He calls up this guy's lawyer. Lawyer says, tell him to be in my office. We agree to a price. I paid $3-4 for the stock. He's paying me $25.50 a share.
Wow.
1978. Those are bad times. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Carter's president.
Yeah, we had gas lines and shit.
Yeah. That was in 73. So I go in, I sign all the papers. 3 months later, on a Saturday, Bernie's been calling my house all day. I'm traveling. I get back in the afternoon. My son Bruce says to me, some guy from California has been calling you all day. So I call him back. You got fired. Is it in the papers? I said, no. He said, he fired me. He fired Arthur. He fired Ron Brill. and he's going to try to put me in jail.
So wait, Arthur meaning Arthur Blank.
Arthur Blank.
He was involved in.
He was a CFO of Handy Dandy.
Okay, go ahead. So he fires you.
And Ron Brill was a guy that worked for Arthur, and they fired him. So all three of them are fired. So it was Saturday afternoon around 4:30, and I said, "When can you get to New York?" He says, "Why?" I said, "Well, I got an idea." "Oh, I can come tonight." I said, "Fine." What'd you get fired for? He said, "Well, I got fired for a labor law violation." Labor law? Yeah, we put some employees in a store that were going to have a union representation.
Now, audience, you got to understand something. You're hearing right now the development of one of our largest successful corporations in America, how it's all happening. Go ahead, Kenny. This is exciting.
So he says, "I can get there tonight." I said, "Fine, I'll see you for breakfast at the Waldorf tomorrow morning at 9:30. I got to go to Mass, and I'll drive in." I lived out in Manhasset then. So he said, "Okay." And I said, "By the way, bring a labor lawyer with you." "Why?" I said, "Well, I want to find out what we're dealing with why you got fired." So he brought a guy in by the name of Jerry Glassman, a very good labor lawyer from Jersey. So I meet him. He looks like shit. He just got fired. He's got 3 kids, no money, no insurance, no nothing. And the guy's haunting him, hounding him to put him in jail.
Wow.
So we sit there, and I said to the labor lawyer, I said, "How are you?" He's fine. I said, "You know what he did?" "Yeah." I said, "Is he going to jail?" So Bernie says, "Jail, jail. What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you can't run a company from jail." "What company?" I said, "Bernie, remember you told me in Houston one day we were walking a store? There was something out there that if somebody did it, it would revolutionize the industry, but it was so powerful you wouldn't tell me what it was?" I said, "We're going to do it, whatever the hell it is." "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you told me there was something. That's what we're going to do, but I haven't got any money." I said, "Don't worry, I'll get the money." And that's how we started the company.
So then you have Bernie Marcus, the original founders were Bernie Marcus,
Arthur Blank,
and you, and then you decided. So whose idea was it?
Well, Bernie had the idea of the business.
Yeah.
I threw at him, "Let's start." He needed a job. I said, "Bullshit on the job."
But then you were the guy that's going to be doing the financing.
Yeah,
they all knew the Langone man.
I had to go raise the money.
Yeah. So now you raised the money. How much was the original monies you raised?
$2 million.
$2 million. I got to keep laughing because I know you invested $100,000.
Oh, I invested $100,000.
$100,000 initially.
But I also got 5% of the company for putting the deal together.
How much did that $100,000 turn out to be at its best, Kenny?
Well, it's at its best. Well, it's almost at its best now.
So 100,000 turned into what?
Well over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion. And then you just continue. You got other companies.
Well, I still do. I'm a junkie. I'm a junkie.
But you love the action. But one thing I learned about Ken Langone, if you bring him a friggin' idea, if it ain't his idea, he doesn't like it.
Well, no, if it isn't something I think I can do, I tell you right in front, I can't do it.
Well, all I can say is
I don't believe in pipe dreams.
We're tightening it up with time. But here's the things I want people to understand about you, Kenny. You've given hundreds of millions of dollars to a hospital where my grandson was born.
God bless.
Whenever any problems occurred, it's
you in there too.
Yeah, you're right. Stents.
Yeah, heart problems.
It's
eating all that pork up at Rayo's.
Yeah, but we're going to eat more of it. We keep getting stents. So one of the things, Kenny, that's remarkable about you. A lot of people don't know. You help a lot of people, but you don't look for the accolades. You're there. You stand by everyone, including we raised $1.5 million one night for the cancer research for Margot and all. You're always there. My point is what you do for my church, for the St. Patrick's Cathedral, raising hundreds of millions of dollars there. You're a guy there that keeps giving back to society. And one of the most unbelievable thing is you're a true family man. You love family along with business is one thing, but I know for a fact that you love your family.
La familia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's the Italian.
I recommend something because it's a book. I was very fortunate to be invited to your book party. And
unfortunate.
What?
You were there.
I said I was very
unfortunate.
I was very fortunate to be invited.
Go back and check the little bastard.
Okay, so the book is called I Love Capitalism, and I tell everybody, if you want a successful life, you give the roadmap to a successful life.
A lot of luck, Bo.
What's that?
A lot of luck.
But hard work.
No, and also a lot of people who saw more in me than I saw in myself.
Well,
like that guy at Bucknell that offered me admission. Like when I almost got thrown out of Bucknell, and the guy that saved me from getting thrown out. Like when I was failing out of Bucknell and the professor said, you're going to get out, you're going to get thrown out. And I said, I know it. Is that what you want? And I said, no. He said, well, I want to put together a plan and see if we can save you. And he did.
Well, you know what?
So I go on, and my wife, I'd be nothing without you. Met my wife.
I love your wife.
62 years we're married.
Let me tell you, always a smile on the face. There's one thing that you mentioned in your book, a kid told you once, money doesn't buy everything. And I said, well, kid, I was poor, and I can tell you right now, poverty doesn't do a very good job either.
Right.
So in other words, they say money isn't everything, but when you're poor, there's more arguments for money when people are married because they're trying to strive to be successful with their family. And if the potatoes ain't coming in, that's conflict.
Bo, I've been rich and I've been poor. Rich is better.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
let me tell you, money doesn't buy happiness. Money should do one thing, give you choices. But I'll tell you something else about money. Money doesn't leave you the way you are. It either makes you a better person or a worse person. But it doesn't leave you as you were.
there was one thing, Kenny, that, I know we're winding down, but there was one thing I wanted your opinion of.
Go ahead.
We start to see this guy, Jeff Bezos from Amazon,
good man,
worth $140.
I know, we're almost done. $140
billion. Yep. When you see these numbers, these little punk kids popping up with these apps, how's your feeling about where there's not really?
Jeff Bezos is not a punk kid.
Oh, I'm talking about the .com kids.
Well, I'm talking about a lot of them. Look at what Zuckerberg is doing with his money. Bo,
but what's your feelings about these overnight billionaires? You worked hard.
All right, maybe because I didn't have the bandwidth, intellectual bandwidth. They did. They're bright. They had a great idea. Facebook.
I take that back. I'm not saying Bezos is a punk kid. I'm talking about the .com kids.
Well, I'm talking about anybody. Mm-hmm. Life is a collection of hard work, good luck, and people who care about you. That's all.
But
so these kids,
Kenny, that are
but a lot. I go to Robinhood. Look at all these hedge fund guys. Look at the money the hedge fund guys pour into poverty in New York City.
Robinhood is a charitable organization. They raise $80 million in one night.
Run by over 100 one night.
Yeah.
Paul Tudor Jones, extremely wealthy man, and he's passionate about helping people living in poverty. So, Paul, I'm sorry. Unlike the Pope, who thinks rich people exploit poor people, I have a problem with the Pope. I think he would stick to his spiritual responsibilities.
I agree with you on that, too.
Well, I'm just saying that I'll give you one measure.
Yeah.
If you add up all the money my wife and I have spent on ourselves, our homes, the plane, you name it, it's a fraction. It's a fraction. It's a small fraction of the money we've given away to charities.
Oh, I know that.
Okay? What I'm saying is, yes, I live well, but I'm also mindful, and I think these kids today have the same sensitivity to social responsibility and social obligation. I am very impressed with the giving mentality of a lot of these kids, Bo, so I push back with you on that.
Well, you know what? I'm a person that I learned from the master. If Ken Langone tells me that, then that's the gospel, Kenny. And I'm glad to hear that.
And I have something else, Bo, I believe.
Yeah.
The gratification and the sense of self-worth that Elaine and Guy have gotten by sharing our wealth is more than what we've given. It's not my place to tell anybody else what to do with their money. If somebody else doesn't want to share their wealth, that's their decision, and I don't judge them. All I know in my case, and in Elaine's case, we have this great sense of satisfaction and comfort in knowing that, yes, we live well, and yes, we have all of these wonderful appurtenances, all these wonderful things in life, homes and cars and planes and help and you name it. But I also feel better about the fact that after all that, I've still got some money but I can help somebody else. And I feel good about helping somebody else. And I tell young kids, if you don't believe in yourself, don't expect anybody else to believe in you. Wow. So to me, being generous or sharing our wealth fortifies my own sense of worth in myself. And that ain't bad.
Wow. You know what? It's just so thrilling to listen to you, Kenny. I know you for a lot of years, but to get deep in you like this, it's a remarkable thing for everyone to listen to this and show people that it's not all about making all that money. It's about what you do with it and making the self-satisfaction of helping other people. And I think that's what I'm taking out of this today. If I ever do get a couple extra buckaroos, I'm going to share.
You'll have a few extra buckaroos.
Yeah, and I really thank you so much, Kenny, today. And we do something at the end of our show.
Right.
We do a punk of the week, meaning something or somebody that you're upset with that upset you this week. Anything. Could be political, it could be anything.
It's only the middle of the week. I haven't got anybody's time yet. Nobody's upset me this week yet. Bernie Sanders, every time I see him, I saw him the other night screaming. He's an airhead. What has he done? What has he personally done besides going out and riling? I want to give him a free plane ride down to Venezuela and let him see what socialism does for you. Okay.
my punk of the week is my punk of the week is our former Speaker of the House. It's time to go out to the dog trap. And let it put a ticket on it, like Amish used to say, take it to the dog track.
Don't start me up.
Kenny, I want to thank you so much, and God bless you and your family. May health be with you and your family forever and ever. And if you ever need anything, the Bowman's there.
God bless you. I appreciate it. I'll call you about the table.
Okay, brother. Bye. Stay tuned. We're going to have some great shows coming up. Podcasts are going to be increasing. And next couple of weeks, we're going to have the new DEA president, the Detective Endowment president, a very dear friend of mine. And we got a lot more to come. Stay tuned to Bo Dietl's One Tough Podcast. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Thank you.